Ken Jordan here. Alright, at the end of the last session, I mentioned it being about 40 minutes. And some of you may have determined that I was kind of losing it a little bit at the end and taking the SCPs I was going over at the time a little too seriously, viewing them almost as if they were real. Part of that is just to my history. Part of it is also the 40-minute threshold, and this is something that I don't think I've really mentioned before. After 40 minutes of exposure to any material, your brain subconsciously starts to view it as being real. So for instance, if you're reading a book and you hit that 40 minutes, now this doesn't mean you consciously are going to just assume that everything happening in the book is really happening. But if you're vividly imagining it, to your subconscious mind, your brain will start simply accepting that it's reality. You do this with virtual reality, you do it with movies. It's why a compelling movie that's long enough will draw you in. It's why some people complain when things bump them out of that state, not realizing that part of what's disconcerting to them is that they're not viewing it as reality anymore. Well, this has some pretty powerful effects at times. If you're viewing something as being real on a subconscious level, and again, we're talking deep levels here. We're not talking that you honestly believe on that conscious level that things are going on, but your heart rate, your respiration, how your brain responds, will start viewing things at that level of being real, as if they're actually happening to you at the time, or you're at least seeing them happen. Now, this can give you a front row to the observer effect. To an extent, this can be a useful thing. It's not necessarily needed for these types of inoculations. It's not a bad thing if it happens. Certainly, long exposures to things will help you remember them later. That's just true for anything. If you lived with a vampire day in and day out, and they were always a vampire to you, you would remember vampires. If you see a person fly out of the sky in a movie, you recall it not just because of the length of time you've been watching the movie, but because we have a certain expectation and acceptance of fiction. If you watched a lot of movies with people flying and then saw a person flying down in front of you, you would then the next day possibly remember it if you're the kind of person who can remember that type of thing. Certain other people won't even see it happening at the time. That's, or they'll see it and then assume that it was something else later. Well, a good thing to look into that are how people respond to UFOs. They see the strange lights. The people will be pointing up at them, "Oh, I saw it. But then if you talk to the same people the next day, 70% of them will say, "Yeah, I think I remember seeing something." And you'll even get into people just after a week or two who are gonna say, "No, there was nothing there." Okay, I kind of rambled away from the 40-minute effect. Basically, what this means is that anything you want to impact your physiology and your mind, do for longer than approximately 40 to 45 minutes, and you'll start getting more powerful impacts. It can also be a little bit confusing, because like I did at the end of the last session, I started treating it like I was reading an actual document of something that was real. This might also be to my own mental state and training. I'm willing to admit that. So, remember, the SCPs, they're fiction. This is a fiction right here. SCP-2841 and 2 are twins born in Illinois. Though they appear to be normal, they are dizygotic, that's a mouthful, dizygotic twins who share a single functional brain. The female is 1.72 meters tall and contains the left side of the brain, the male at 1.79 meters tall, containing the right side of the brain. The portions are not associated with either lobe. Okay, interesting. In both subjects, the size of the possessed lobe is approximately 50% larger than normal, presumably to allow for maintaining the function of two bodies at once. It has been found that while the subjects have separate personalities, they share memories, skills, knowledge, physical sensation, and have shown limited levels of emotional synergy. Though there is no way to know for certain, they claim to have taught themselves how to block out sensory information from each other to varying degrees. Vision and hearing can be blocked out completely, while taste, smell, and touch can be weakened. Doing so is a choice of the one receiving the information, not the one experiencing it. With physical skills, it should be noted that while subjects have the knowledge of proper technique, muscle tissue only develops to properly execute the skills efficiently, and with significant endurance in the subject who has physically learned the skill, which is probably of less note than you would think at first. Functionally, if you're an in-shape human being, most skills that you would learn in a common fashion that are actual skills don't take a high level of endurance to continually perform. That's not the way we structure things. Now, if one of them became an ultra-endurance runner or a triathlete, then that would have a significant difference, even though the other knew all the skills. But face it, you know all the skills to become an ultra-endurance athlete. You run, or as a triathlete, you run, swim, and bike. At least I hope you know how to do those things. If not, you might want to start working on that. Being able to ride a bicycle or swim, it can come up, especially in emergency situations. Okay. While the subjects do not show any advantage in proficiency for skills associated with their respective lobes, it has been found that when separated by a significant distance, they each have delayed responses from the other subject's lobe. Also of note is that both subjects seem incapable of remaining awake more than 16 minutes after the other has fallen asleep, and both awaken at the same time, whether allowed to sleep until they wake up on their own or woken from their sleep separately. What we're viewing here, looking at here in fiction, is that you can have anomalous operations, things going on that would otherwise not make sense to physics, but kind of seem plausible. I'm gonna leave that one here. I've never encountered anything like that in real life, but, well, outside of just telepathy or the various forms of telepathy, which are noted as being higher in twins, so I think that's where they were going with that. Let's move to SCP-289, which is an irregularly shaped mass of hematite, Fe2O3, with analysis showing trace amounts of aluminum, phosphorus, data expunged in water. Now, again, what would be expunged there? Gold, diamond, precious metal, carbon? I mean, we're talking about, iridium. They're plutonium. They're still just going to be compounds. It's, is it human blood? Why not just say human blood? Sorry. Anyway, and water. Which of course should be broken down into its separate components unless it's in a liquid water state. SCP-289 has a unique property of intensifying the effects of inertia over objects in a 1.6 meter radius over time. Now, that's an interesting effect. Objects that remain immobile will become more and more difficult to move, while objects maintaining a constant speed will become very difficult to stop. At best estimate, close proximity to the object increases the object's inertia by 17% every 160 seconds, with a slightly lower reduction of inertia over time to base levels after being removed from the active radius of the object. Okay. They seem to be saying that this is just an object with an inherent ability that is possibly natural in formation, and seems to kind of fit with the overall idea that I would have of an object like this. It has really one simple function, and that is that it enhances negative or positive inertia, and that's all it does. It does it at a regular rate, possibly through a means that would seem anomalous. Doing that itself would seem anomalous, but it has a very clean function. I like it. There's also a story to go along with this. Again, well worth reading the stories. The fiction of it is important. I'm going over these things in rapid fire. I'm honestly beginning to think that I might need to put together some kind of production of reading these, telling stories, going over things in a way to help draw people in a little bit more. Recall, I haven't put any of these up online yet. This is going to be part of the initial data dump, but I'm kind of thinking that maybe it would be a little bit more entertaining that way. So yeah, if this goes up first, and I have the ability to do it, let me know. I probably won't be able to answer comments. I'm gonna have to move around a lot. My plan with this is that I'm doing up 10 of these ahead of time. I'm gonna put them all up in very short order. I might even do some past that, if I can figure out how to work out a timed release. I think I have a way of doing that, so that things will update regularly, and then maybe work out some other things, do dramatic readings or something, which, that's going to take learning some new skills. But let's move to the next one. SCP-293. SCP-293 is currently held to be some form of intangible force presence. Questions have been raised regarding a possible intelligence behind the subject in light of the subject's reactions. However, these are still unfounded. SCP-293 is most visible in its effect on human behavior and is only detectable in very advanced cases as a very slight auditory disturbance. This lack of presence forms the major issue with SCP-293 detection, as it is almost impossible to detect if items or people are infected by the subject without long-term observation. Okay, this would make it really hard to deal with something like this, and quite clearly, if you've been paying attention at all, things like this do exist. This is something that we're going to see out there in real life. I'm gonna have to go here. Something is going on outside again. God, I hope that I can remember it this time. I'm just gonna make this one short. Thanks everybody. Bye.